Grand Rising Galactic Jedis, Freedom Fighters, and Patriots. Welcome to another Alliance update. Boy, it seems like every day new and new things are happening in this global shift of power. I would like to first thank everyone for being here. I want to extend gratitude to each and every single one of you, and also my moderators for keeping the high vibe in the chat. Thank you guys so much for being here once again. And also for those who are going to watch it on the replay, again, without you guys, I wouldn't have the ability to go in here and reveal or give updates as to I have been in the last, almost 2.5 years now. So welcome everyone to my YouTube channel. For all my new subscribers, I am the author of those two amazing books, The Secret Government, Invisible Architects, and of course, Our Cosmic Origin, which restores galactic information back to the Earth. A lot has been happening lately, especially with Minneapolis and, with Iran and worldwide. It seems like things are unfolding on a daily basis. So what's happening right now, I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, why doesn't he just invoke the Insurrection Act? Well, the Alliance decided to do a different strategy, all right? They are actually coordinating some strategies that is going to be accelerating starting today. You guys are going to love what I have to say about what's happening right now as they are purging the FBI. And this is just the beginning. All the three-letter agencies are all on the list. So while the public attention has been remained fixed on surface level politics, economic noise, and even manufactured, and yes, my friends, manufactured crisis such as the Soros Fund protesters and the Antifa groups operating in Minneapolis and, of course, the other 18 sanctuary cities. A far more consequential transformation is actually unfolding, guys, involving Space Force from behind the scenes that will not only put an end to these criminal networks, but as well as, of course, drain the swamp. Okay, so this is the moment that we've all been waiting for. The Alliance has taken measures based on probable outcomes to secure the well-being of the American people without triggering any massive civil unrest, because that would be catastrophic. Okay, coordinated movements, including strategic realignments and even high-level operations that are being orchestrated by the Alliance, are now actually advancing at a pace that far exceeds the public awareness. And this is done, again, to prevent chaos. So across multiple domains, Alliance structures have shifted from preparation into execution, okay, beginning with the purging of the FBI, which actually took place this morning. United States Space Force assets, advanced intelligence channels, as well as all interlinked allied networks are no longer operating in isolation, guys. They are synchronized, task-oriented, and even actively shaping what is known as the next phase of global and off-world security architecture. So in this update, guys, I know you guys are probably thinking, wow, he just got right into it. No, in this update, I'm going to break down what is actually happening, why even timing matters at this time, and how coordination is accelerating and what signal points towards the next phase ahead. So from the United Nations to a new peace architecture known as the Board of Peace, to even Project Cleanline, dismantling all the three-letter agencies, right, or purging them from the deep state, including what is known as Operation Final Ledger. Guys, we're going to go deep once again. I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening today on the 27th. Actually, my bad. I am one day ahead. On the 26th of January 2056. No, I'm just kidding. 2026. All right. So before I get started, guys, I do want to thank all the Galactic Jedis that have signed up for my courses. It is a pleasure meeting all the new people. I think that's probably the main reason why I teach this classes is because I get to know people on a personal level. I get to hear your story. So thank you guys so much. I'm not going to be teaching any new classes till probably about the end of February. I have a lot of things going in the next few weeks, including my presentation at the Conscious Life Expo this coming February the 21st. And I only have capacity for 200 people, guys, in the Zoom stream. So for those that can't make it in person, make sure you sign up for that stream through my website, our cosmicorigin.com. And also, I heard that there's only about 18 Folium PX bottles left. So first come, first serve. Make sure you guys click that Folium link and make sure you guys access your Folium for the next month. There's only 18 PX. Of course, Immuna and as well as this one, Relax, are still in stock. And the deal still stands, I believe. So go to my website or click the link to get your Folium and get rid of those metals, nanoparticulates, that radiation, all of that negative stuff. Okay, now I can start the presentation. Now I can start the presentation. So I would like to first talk about what is known as Operation Final Ledger. And this is something that took place actually this morning when Donald J. Trump initiated a classified emergency meeting under Wartime Continuity Authority. The trigger was a high-level breach attempt against the quantum financial system and the Sarah tier routing architecture, which was an attack so precise, so deeply embedded that it confirmed one thing beyond doubt, that the remaining deep state financial networks, guys, know that their time is up, okay? So this was their final attempt at blocking the new financial system from coming online, okay? This was not a test, according to this report. This was their last ditch intercepting attempt, but to no avail. So at 3:04 a.m. Eastern time, encrypted routing packets that were tied to what is known as Tier 2 Nicera disbursement streams were intercepted as a Tier 1 rally node linked to a Fort Meade backup system. The breach was detected by QFS Autonomous Integrity Layer, known as Aurora-5, which flagged the packets as synthetically masked financial traffic disguised as ESG-linked investment flows. The routing signatures pointed to offshore blind trust in Liechtenstein, Zurich, and a secondary network routed through Tel Aviv, right? We all know that the war is ending in favor of Russia. Jurisdictions historically used for elite asset shielding. The tools employed were actually not civilian-grade cyber methods. They originated from a post-2020 IMF and central bank digital architecture, accessible only to insiders with sovereign-level authorization. So this was an internal strike, an attempted external strike against the QFS, but by what remains of the deep states. But at 5:42 a.m. Eastern time, this morning, Trump activated Article 147-G, which was an emergency protocol that was reserved for active wartime continuity of government conditions. Authority here reasserted in late 2025 following multiple failed assassinations and infrastructure attacks. The response was instantaneous, guys, okay? Washington aerospace restricted, red zone sealed, White Hat financial nodes isolated. A secure emergency session convened inside the underground SCIF beneath the White House. Communications were hardline only, devices disabled, documents delivered by hand. Present were senior military, intelligence, and even financial command figures, including leadership from SOCOM, the Treasury, the NSA, and QFS Black Node operations. Well, this meeting was not reactive, it was executory, okay? So what the breach confirmed was that the attempted QFS, for those who don't know what QFS, some people don't know what QFS is, that is the White Hat reset known as the quantum financial system, which is going to be digitally backed, asset-backed digital currency, okay? XRP, XLM, with the restoration of the U.S. Treasury backed by gold and silver, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the attempted QFS intrusion did not succeed, guys. Thank God. But it did trigger the green light for a plan finalized months earlier. The breach confirmed that the elite financial actors that were linked to the IMF engineering layers, European central banking cartels, and even the multinational asset managers, who were all attempting to hijack Nicera, routing before its public rollout, of course. With that confirmation, guys, Operation Final Ledger moved from containment to execution. Key directives were issued, were immediate activation of Final Ledger asset rerouting, deployment of QFS transfer grid alpha bypassing legacy SWIFT pathways, unsealing of a new batch of sealed indictments tied to banking, media, and tech coordination, and acceleration of Tier 1 Nicera public confirmation timelines. So, simultaneously, silent operational orders were, were transmitted to special operation units positioned in Belgium, Germany, and even Australia, which are run by the globalist, the enemy, to neutralize remaining satellite-linked digital banking uplinks that were tied to the Rothschild era clearing systems. The breach was not isolated. It was actually the culmination of a collapsing sequence where by mid-January, the European central banking systems quietly rebalanced their gold-backed collateral. Days later, the IMF efforts to merge with the ESG-linked funds into protected QFS streams were denied. Senior figures that were working with BlackRock, the European Central Bank, and even the EU, the European Union, they all met behind closed doors where multiple shell entities were connected to political lawfare operations dissolved overnight by the alliance. Thank God, okay? Each move represented a shrinking window to divert gold-backed wealth away from sovereign redistribution. So this window closed at exactly 3 a.m. this morning, January 2026, and the verification layer was actually targeted. But the question is, why was the verification layer targeted? Well, according to this report, a key focus of the breach attempted was the QFS identity and validation layer, specifically the mechanism that prevent unauthorized access to Tier 1 settlement priority. So the attackers attempted biometric spoofing, AI identity mirroring, and NGO-based credential laundering as well. Luckily for us, all attempts failed, okay? The QFS integrity locks confirmed that only one, or the original rather, ledger stamped identities can access protected routing. And this is the reason why the cabal failed, okay? The elite networks lacked access and could not fabricate it, thank God. Their exclusion triggered the panic move that exposed them. So what is coming next is Operation Final Ledger, which is now active, which is coordinated arrests are scheduled to begin in early February, beginning with the purging of the FBI, which happened today, okay? Public confirmation of Tier 1 Nicera activations will follow shortly after that. Emergency communications will accompany cascading international bank failures, and Trump is expected to address the nation with evidence of attempted financial sabotage. Well, this phase marks the visible transition from covert financial warfare to open systematic replacement. The final assessment of this is this: that the January 26th emergency meeting was not defensive, guys. It was declarative. Trump anticipated the strike. It allowed it to surface and used it to legally and strategically initiate the final dismantling of a financial control system that has been operating above sovereign law for decades. The breach attempt was the deep state's last move, has been confirmed, and yes, they failed, apparently. The control mechanisms are being shut down. We're talking about the deep state's mechanisms. So the ledger is being rewritten, and the system that extracted wealth for generations is losing access permanently. Okay. So, therefore, while public attention remains fixed on this surface level politics, like the democratic trying to attempt to shut down the government once again, and the manufactured crisis, such as the Soros Fund protesters and Antifa groups that are operating in these cities, like in Minneapolis. Well, there is a far more consequential transformation, guys, that is actually unfolding quietly behind the scenes that involves Space Force, which will put an end to not only the criminal networks in the 19 sanctuary cities, as well as draining the swamp, but including putting an end to the Mexican cartel and purging the rest of the criminal networks in South America. Okay, so the alliance is trying this different approach using Space Force, which will be incorporating advanced technologies for the very sake of not triggering what they call massive civil unrest. Okay, that would be very catastrophic. So, coordinated movements, strategic realignments, and even high level operations that are being orchestrated by the alliance are now advancing at a pace that far exceeds public awareness. And this is done, again, to prevent chaos. Across multiple domains, alliance structures have shifted from preparation to execution. The United States Space Force assets, advanced intelligence channels, and all the interlinked allied networks comprised of the 209 countries that are aligned with the alliance are no longer operating in isolation. Okay, they are synchronized globally, task oriented, and even actively shaping the next phase of global and off world security architecture, initiating what is known as, or the beginning stages of building what is known as the Golden Dome. So, the most significant change is actually structural, and it's happening right now from behind the curtain, guys. For years, the alliance activity focused on containment, right? We all know that. Intelligence gathering and defensive positioning through what? Project Odin, right? Well, that phase is now ended. The current environment reflects a transition into active alignment and enforcement. Therefore, the legacy systems, the financial and political and technological and even informational, are all quietly bypassed rather than confronted head on. So the alliance is taking a better approach. Instead of dramatic collapsing them, we are seeing a controlled obsolescence of these systems. Okay, new frameworks are being stood up in parallel while outdated power structures are slowly deprived of relevance, access, and authority. Their pipelines are drying as I speak. Behind closed doors, guys, command chains have been simplified. Redundant intermediaries are being removed. Decision making authority is consolidating into fewer, more secure nodes. And this is reducing leaks, speeds across times, and allowing synchronized action across land, sea, air, cyber, and space domain. So apparently the curtain is not lifting yet, but the stage has been rebuilt. Okay. So why is timing matter? Okay, why does it matter right now? The timing, because it's all about timing when you really think about it. Well, because timing is everything, okay? Multiple long cycles factors have converged simultaneously right now. One of them is that the aging global systems are no longer sustainable. The technological capability that they use has reached operational maturity, right? Obsolete, all right? Also, adversarial networks are fragmented and internally unstable. And most importantly, guys, public perception is fatigued and less reactive. And this is all creating what they call a narrow window where decisive restructuring could actually occur without triggering mass panic or unified resistance. So the alliance is actually moving now because delay would reintroduce risk, while premature exposure would compromise operational advantage. In strategic terms, this is the moment when preparation converts into irreversible momentum. Once certain thresholds are crossed logistically, technologically, and even jurisdictionally, I don't even know if that's a word, rollback becomes impossible. That is why actions are accelerating r- fast right now. Okay. And so acceleration is very visible in the way that domains are now being interlocked. And this is how the Alliance is coordinating everything. They're using space force based assets. Okay. They are no longer treated as support tools, guys. They are the central command instruments in intelligence, where once compartmentalized, agencies were dividing, right, flowing through the different structures in a compartmentalized uh, type of basis, right? Well, now all of that is dissolving. Okay, everything is being shared, and so this is allowing a what they call a near real-time synchronization across allied partners that are literally bleeding through the breakaway groups, right? The SSP into the surface knowledge. Okay, I don't know if that makes any sense. I hope it does. I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. Military intelligence and scientific sectors are no longer operating sequentially, guys. They are operating concurrently. And this is a critical shift because it allows actions in one domain to immediately reinforce another, collapsing responses, timelines from weeks to hours. So perhaps um, most telling is the reduction in public signaling when coordination reaches a certain level of confidence. At that point, the messaging between cabal networks becomes very minimal, and then eventually they just begin to be unable to communicate with one another. Okay, so that's going to lead to their dismantling, where they are no longer, where their pipelines are dismantled, their networks are completely vaporized. We're going to be seeing a huge shift as a result of that. So this is what is signaling what they call the next phase ahead. And several signals have indicated that in the next phase that is approaching now, we are going to see increased hardening of space and orbital infrastructure. And this is being done through Space Force. Quiet jurisdictional realignments and treaty interpretations, persistent emphasis on resilience and redundancy and continuity, strategic patience replacing reactive escalation. So these are all the indicators of a system that is preparing not for conflict, but for transition. Okay, they're trying to do this as peaceful as possible. And so there is a handoff, you could say, from one operational reality to another, right? So the objective is stability here, guys, through transformation, not domination through force. So everything that the alliance is doing right now, guys, is securing a smooth transition, okay? A slow dismantling of the old to usher in the golden age, beginning with America. First Nicera and then Gessera. So the next phase will not arrive also as a single event. It will actually manifest as a series of confirmations, systems that simply no longer respond the way they used to, authorities that will quietly shift, and narratives that will lose their power overnight. So when the public finally notices, and they will, most of the work will have already been completed. So, um, the transition now underway, guys, is not a sudden collapse, as mentioned, of the old global order, but a managed stripping away of the obsolete structures. And this explains the Mexican mafia, the 19 sanctuaries here in our country, and of course, the global Swift bank. So, what appears from the outside as confusion or even polarization and institutional paralysis is from within an alliance framework, okay? A deliberate recalibration of authority executed gradually to avoid systematic shock. So, at the center of this recalibration is actually a shift away from centralized legacy power blocks and even toward distributed command, accountability, and sovereignty first governance. Space based command plays a crucial role in this process by enabling oversight, that is insulated from local political capture and ideological pressure, as well as legacy enforcement mechanisms. So, the role of the United States Space Force in this phase is not conquest, but coordination, ensuring continuity as old systems lose legitimacy and new frameworks are introduced. So rather than confronting entrenched power structures directly, the alliance strategy is focusing on attrition of relevance, where institutions that once controlled the narrative, enforcement, and finance are being deprived, leverage one layer at a time. And my friends, this includes jurisdictional fragmentation of centralized authority, legal and financial decoupling from legacy enforcement networks or legacy enforcement networks, exposure of systematic corruption through process, and the reassertion of national and regional sovereignty. So, what that means is that domestic instability, such as what's happening in Minneapolis, manifesting, of course, as ideological extremism, sanctuary governance conflicts, and even factional activism, is treated not as an enemy force, but as an evidence of structural exhaustion. These pressures accelerate reform by revealing the limits of outdated governance models without requiring overt suppression. So the objective is not forceful removal, but replacement through irrelevance. And this is the reason why Trump will not invoke the Insurrection Act. Okay, that would lead to chaos worldwide, civil unrest. Instead, the alliance is not only working a better strategy domestically, but also, internationally, which leads to the next topic. Okay, the alliance scope beyond U.S. borders is as indicated. The alliance transition is also continental in scope, which means that the criminal networks, all the financial corruption, and institutional capture do not respect the borders, apparently, and neither does the restructuring effort. So, across Mexico, and this is something that we're going to be witnessing very, very soon in Latin America. As mentioned before, Maduro was the first to be on the list. There's more. Across Mexico and Latin America, the focus is on dismantling transnational corporation frameworks that rely on legacy financial systems, comprised institutions, and coercive leverage. And the approach is prioritizing these three things: financial transparency and system bypass, intelligence driven accountability, and sovereign cooperation over external intervention. And so, similarly, guys, Canada is not being viewed as an adversary, even though they are control of the deep state, but as a captured governance model requiring internal reset. So, the long term objective right now is institutional purification in Canada as well, and destabilization, allowing legitimate governance in Canada to reemerge once external influence is neutralized. So, it looks like Canada is also going to be on the list where their government is going to be taken out by Space Force. So taken together, this represents an effort to actually purge the entire American continent of entrenched deep state architectures, replacing them with what is known as interoperable but sovereign systems, right? Representatives that are in alignment with the alliance, in other words. So, from the United Nations to a new peace architecture, we're also seeing what is known as the replacement of the European Union or the UN through what is known as the new Board of Peace. Okay. So, this is one of the clearest signals, guys, of global systematic transition, where we are witnessing the declining relevance of what is known as the European nations. Designed for what? This was designed as a post-World War order by the Rothschilds, right? Its structure is ill-suited for a multipolar, technological, accelerated world. Well, in its place, the alliance has instituted the new Board of Peace with Trump as their chairman, which is a framework focused on mediation, right? Apparently, the UN is being fired. They haven't been doing their job since post World War II, and we all know that. So, this new board of peace, guys, which again, Trump is just the front man for the alliance, but this new board of peace that has been envisioned by the alliance is a framework focused on mediation, right? Mediation to prevent wars, reconstruction from the wars that have occurred, and most importantly, guys, and sovereignties, protecting the sovereignty of nations, right? And this shift would include freeing Europe from dependency of NATO, dismantling globalist leverage over national decision making, and replacing permanent conflict structures with adaptive stability mechanisms. So, peace in this model is maintained through balance and transparency and endless expansion of military blocks. So, Greenland and the Golden Dome, which is also, again, there is a space based stability happening at the behind the Golden Dome, being engineered by Space Force. In other words, guys, it's already being constructed. Can I get more water, please? Thank you. So, Greenland's strategic position, guys, is allowing space based command. Yes, guys, the primary command node of Space Force is being relocated to Greenland as I speak. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Greenland's strategic position, allowing space based command to integrate planetary defense, early warning, and continuity infrastructure into a single stabilizing node. Space Command's coordination ensures that this system operates above regional politics and legacy interference. Within alliance narratives, Greenland is also viewed as a convergence point where surface civilization begins structured cooperations with inner Earth civilizations, described as what? Custodians of advanced technologies, the inner Earth civilizations, that have been preserving this technology through the earlier cycles of human development. So, all of this, as mentioned in my prior presentation, guys, is leading to disclosure. Okay. So, in this framework, disclosure is in progress now. Only after institutions, of course, are stabilized. And this is what's happening right now with the final dismantling of not only the deep state here in the States, or may I say the North American continent, but globally. Okay. So, as we stabilize the world and purge it from the swamp, okay, corruption, neutralized everything, guys. And once security frameworks are fully in place worldwide through the Board of Peace, um, which is, of course, being done through Donald J. Trump and the alliance, this is going to announce. The next step is the announcing uh, of non human intelligence, or may we say advanced human intelligences. And this is something that is scheduled to happen perhaps even by this summer. Trump's going to be used by the alliance to announce it to the world the truth about the non terrestrials, the advanced humans that have not only been living inside the earth, inside the oceans, all throughout the solar system infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Okay. This announcement is scheduled, okay, but only as they remove the cabal. And when this happens, guys, they will begin rolling out all these advanced technologies through Space Force. There is a coordination taking place right now as I speak between the Galactic Alliance, Space Force, and the Inner Earth allies. Okay. So this is going to sequence, you could say, the rollout of technologies without the chaos. Okay. Again, the alliance are trying to use strategies that will prevent mass shock. Okay. So this is all part of the agenda, guys. The alliance is insisting that we remain faithful and that we have to trust that the forces of light are actually winning, and they have already won. Okay. So this phase of the alliance plan is not about domination either. It is a transition without collapse, as they call it. The careful dismantling of absolute power structures, while a new, more resilient order is assembled quietly parallel. Okay. So space based command is enabling this by operating above legacy systems. They do operate beyond Congress, by the way, until we purge Congress from the swamp. Then Space Force or space based command operations will no longer be operating beyond Congress. Okay. So now they also operate beyond borders and, most importantly, above ideology. Okay. So what the public experiences as disorder is, from another vantage point, controlled transformation. So the old order is not being attacked, it is being outgrown, in other words. Okay, let's talk about the Board of Peace, because this is huge, guys. The Board of Peace and the architecture of a post UN world is very crucial in this transition into the new world age. As legacy global institutions lose credibility and coherence, as we are all seeing, the transition that is now underway, guys, is revealing its end game. Not disorder, but replacement. Okay, this is a strategy. The declining of the centralized enforcement bodies does not signal the absence of global coordination. It actually signals the birth of a new model built for a multipolar planetary civilization. At the heart of this model is the Board of Peace, which is an emerging framework that was designed by the Alliance to succeed institutions like the United Nations, whose post World War architecture is no longer capable of managing technological acceleration or sovereign resurgence or even off world realities. Okay. This is not a rebrand, it is a redesign. So the United Nations, guys, which was created to prevent global war, at least that's what they told us, through what? Through centralized diplomacy and collective security, all BS, right? Well, over time, guys, however, it did evolve into a static bureaucracy vulnerable to capture, politicization, and even paralysis, right? So that's why it's outdated now. So, in a world that is defined by rapid information flow, thanks to the age of information, autonomous technologies, and even non traditional domains of power, the UN model fails in these three critical ways. It enforces consensus where agility is required, it centralizes authority where sovereignty is returning, and it reacts to crisis instead of preventing systematic imbalance. So the UN apparently failed in all of these three critical ways. The alliance assessment is very clear at this time, guys. Peace can no longer be maintained through permanent institutions designed for a past era. It must be maintained through adaptive governance, distributed oversight, and preventive balance, which is going to be implemented through the Board of Peace, which is a new governing philosophy, okay, to bring peace to the earth. Again, we cannot be part of no interstellar or galactic community until we resolve our own issues and we stop fighting each other. And that is just galactic protocol. So the White Hats are trying to do everything in their power to end that final, war with Ukraine. So apparently the Board of Peace represents a huge shift from enforcement to stewardship. And most importantly, what? Responsibility. Okay. Rather than commanding nations, the Board of Peace will be coordinating them. All right. Rather than policing behavior like the UN used to do that, the Board of Peace will stabilize systems. Its purpose is not going to be to rule, but to ensure continuity of world peace so that we could qualify to be part of the galactic community. Of course, they will also be mediator between slight conflicts that could erupt in war and to maintain the planetary equilibrium. So, key principles that are going to be executed with the new Board of Peace include respect for national sovereignty, transparency over coercion, mediation over militarization, prevention over reaction. And so in this framework naturally dissolves the need for expansionist military alliances like NATO, freeing regions, particularly in Europe, from what? Perpetual security dependency and geopolitical leverage circles that were implemented by the globalist liberals. Okay. So, what this means is that peace in this model with the new Board of Peace will no longer be enforced from the surface alone. And this is where Space Force comes into play. Space Force and the new peace infrastructure are going to be working together. In a post UN world, guys, planetary stability cannot be managed exclusively by terrestrial institutions. Therefore, space becomes the what? The neutral oversight layer above borders, politics, and even legacy conflicts. The role of the United States Space Force within this architecture is foundational. And this is why the main infrastructure is moving over to Greenland. Okay. Again, the role of the United States Space Force within this architecture is foundational, not aggressive. Space based command will provide continuous planetary monitoring, early warning and system resilience from any disputes to prevent war, secure coordinations beyond surface interference, infrastructure protection during global transition. Therefore, this transforms space from a contested domain into what? A stabilizing common ground where defense will exist in order to prevent escalation rather than provoke it. So, this is one of the ways in which the Board of Peace will maintain planetary peace, okay, so that we could be eligible by 2028 into the galactic community. So, planetary defense in this sense, guys, is not about enemies, it is about continuity of civilization. And Greenland is the planetary anchor in all of this. It's all interconnected, guys. Everything that is happening right now geopolitically is all interconnected. The convergence of this new architecture is most visible in Greenland. Geographically, energetically, and even strategically, okay? Greenland actually functions as a keystone location for planetary defense and transition infrastructure. And a lot of that has to do with the hidden alien tech that was intended for the Alliance to rediscover. Okay, so within this narrative, the construction of advanced defense mechanisms and monitoring systems to secure global peace, often symbolized as the Golden Dome, represents a shift towards a permanent planetary shielding rather than reactive militarization. Greenland's role right now, guys, is not domination. Okay, I know there's a lot of wingers, whatever you want to call them, deep state sponsored media groups that are telling us that Trump's a dictator, just taking land, whatever. No, no, no. And by the way, Canada is next, as mentioned earlier in this report, for the very reasons that Canada is controlled by the swamp. Okay, so Greenland's role is not domination, guys. It is anchoring. It is part of an anchoring process, a stabilizing node that is linking space-based oversight, surface civilization, and deeper planetary systems. And bear in mind, guys, that a lot of this is also being orchestrated by our brothers and sisters, or may I say, by our advanced brothers and sisters, remnants of ancient civilizations, galactic humans, inner Earth societies, right? They are cooperating with the Global Alliance at this time for this planetary, what we called global planetary reset into the Golden Age. Well, it turns out that a defining distinction right now of the post UN vision is the inclusion of inner Earth civilizations. The inner Earth civilizations have also been waiting for thousands of years for this to come, okay? And again, for those that don't know who these advanced inner Earth civilizations, well, they are described as advanced societies that preserved the knowledge of ancient Atlantis, Lemuria, all right, technologies, and even ecological balance through prior human cycles. So rather than conquest or separation, rather than conquest or revelation, the Inner Earth Society is cooperating, or may I say, the Earth Alliance is cooperating with the Inner Earth Society as they frame what is known as as they proceed in initiating what is known as a reunification. All right, surface humanity reconnecting with a forgotten branch of its planetary lineage, and this is going to totally put an end to Darwinian evolution. All right, in this context, guys, advanced technologies are going to be inherited, okay, not ceased. Planetary defense is going to become more harmonic, not attractive. No, I'm sorry, extractive. Extractive. Earth is going to be recognized as a living system among the stars, not a resource anymore. Because for the last few thousand years, under the control of the Cabal families, the Earth has been a resource, right? That was taken advantage of by the negative ETs who were controlling the Cabal families. Now that we've neutralized the negative ETs, the inner Earth civilizations, our brothers from the inner Earth, have been waiting for this moment, okay, to reunite with us. And so space based command is going to be stationed in Greenland, okay? Surface governments and even inner Earth stewardship will be coming together to form a tri-layer civilization model. Orbital, terrestrial, and subterrestrial, each balancing one another. So, only once this architecture is in place will disclosure become visible, guys. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that we are also reaching what is known as critical a critical peak in the Great Awakening. I get so thirsty when I talk. So, when this takes place, guys, there will be a global announcement, okay? And this is where Donald Trump has been chosen to do that. And I don't know if you guys heard, but there is a rumor that this could even happen as early as this summer, okay? It is a confirmation of realities and again, other advanced humans that have been living among us inside the earth and in the oceans as well. At this stage, humanity will no longer um, be in darkness. Okay, when they are slowly but surely being reintroduced back to the greater universe, we will no longer be a fragmented species. Okay, or a dumbed down species as well. But we are going to be a new planetary civilization with a different type of governance system that is decentralized, that is in alignment with galactic protocols, and Space Force will be providing the interplanetary defense mechanism. Okay, so a lot of these mechanisms are already aligning from behind the scenes. So this is exciting. Okay, the post UN world is not going to lead to anarchy. It is going to lead to a new world. Okay. It is being outdated. The Board of Peace replacing the UN will be enforcing balance once again. Okay. Space Force will be replacing reaction with oversight, and the inner Earth replaces extraction with stewardship. And so, all of this together, they will form the blueprint of a civilization stepping beyond its adolescence, right? As we become a mature race, once we are fully at peace, living in harmony, not only amongst ourselves, but living in harmony with the advanced galactic human civilizations within the Hollow Earth, then and only then will we be openly interacting with the rest of the galactic civilizations. So the old order is fading, all right? It's fading, guys. The new order is arriving gradually, and Earth is about to graduate. Earth is about to graduate. So, another thing I wanted to share with you guys is that right now, as I speak, there is a plan by the Alliance to completely purge all the three-letter agencies, beginning with the FBI. So this is called what they call Project Firewall. Okay. The Department of Justice is no longer operating behind a globalist control firewall. So the DOJ was also purged. It turns out that Pam Bondi was actually a double, as well as Kash Patel. Immediately, the alliance were able to rescue the originals and do away with the doubles. Okay, so that explains why in the last 6 months, Kash Patel, his eyes were kind of like, you know, that double was under mind control. I know some of you guys are like, what? so, so there has been a big purging. Okay, a huge extraction of these doubles, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. So what's unfolding inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation right now is a targeting, dismantling of an internal control structure that for years weaponized federal law enforcement against the American Republic. So under the FBI original, Kash Patel, not the guy that was playing him, that was actually a clone, looks just like him. The purge has already began this morning. Okay, over a dozen senior agents have been quietly terminated within the last 24 hours in this latest wave. These were not administrative figures. They were not just administrative figures. They were operators embedded in the core enforcement, intelligence, and legal coordination pipelines used to undermine President Trump, criminalize political opposition, and shape the 2020 to 2024 narrative from inside federal institutions. So the targets were structural. Okay, the special agents in charge of the Atlanta field office, an office that coordinated directly with DOJ linked efforts in Georgia and fed intelligence into Fulton County prosecutions, has been removed. The node is now offline. Okay, that was a huge, deep state node. So also, the New York Financial Enforcement Hub has been taken out too. The acting assistant director of the New York field office was terminated this morning, which means that this office functioned as a financial and legal laundering center, packaging selective prosecution cases that were tied to elite interest, including Trump organization probes. These files were seized, operations were frozen. So 6 agents that were tied directly to the August 2022 Mar-a-Lago raid were apparently fired this morning. Okay, that operation was built on a politicized intelligence package originating inside the DOJ's National Security Division. The agents who executed it are now gone, terminated. Thank God. Okay. In New Orleans, guys, there was a foreign data conduit also that happened within the last 24 hours. A former SAC with Cross Border Intelligence Authority was removed. This office had routed foreign source data into domestic tasks that were forces through EU linked channels, and that conduit no longer exists anymore. Okay. They are literally beginning to drain the swamp now, guys. This is awesome. Since the original Patel's confirmation in 2025, this has unfolded in deliberate stages. Okay, this is a multi-phase dismantling of the 3-letter agencies, beginning with the DOJ and, of course, the FBI. As of August 2025, senior leadership in DC removed for resisting national security directives and shaping post-January 6 domestic terrorism frameworks. From September to October 2025, agents connected to riot response politicians and unconstitutional data acquisitions were also fired. On November 2025, logistics, surveillance, and transport handlers tied to 2022 and 2024 domestic enforcement actions were purged following Axis audits. January 2026, this month, the current sweep confirms the internal command structure of the FBI has been broken. This is something that even the late JFK Sr. was trying to do, right? Over 60 personnel were removed in the FBI this morning. Classified files were unlocked, okay? This is what they call Project Cleanline. At the center of Project Cleanline, a classified interagency personal intelligence protocol initiated back in 2024, but it's now taking effect. It's tracking political manipulation. Well, that's what it's been doing since then. It's been tracking political manipulation, also tracking foreign influence and deep agent entrenchment across federal systems. Removal criteria included unauthorized cross agency data sharing, ideological filtering of enforcement priorities, and coordination with elite funded NGOs. Not to mention foreign diplomatic interactions that were tied to US elections. We're finally going to get the truth about the stolen 2020 election. So that means that every terminated agent flagged across multiple risk vectors was apparently monitored prior to them being removed. Okay, so yeah, we are draining the swamp, guys. It's just happening from behind the scenes. So a critical but apparently unreported shift just took place this morning. Again, the FBI has terminated all cooperations with the International Law Enforcement Coordinating Committee, an elite Brussels based body that influenced pandemic policy, protest labeling, and election security from 2020 to 2023. As of January 2026, which is now, no foreign back channel policy input, no international indexing of US citizens, no NGA data laundering via humanitarian overlays exist anymore because those pipelines were closed as of this morning, my friends. So, beyond the FBI, okay, all three-letter agencies are about to get purged. Okay, so this is an operation that apparently is extending beyond the FBI. The same audit and removal frameworks is now being applied across every three-letter agency. And that includes ATF, DHS, okay, components as well, and the interagency task forces. Under the Federal Restoration Directive issued in Q3 2025, the administration initiated a full personal audit of federal enforcement bodies, revalidation of FISA authorship and leak coordination, reorientation of enforcement priorities through a newly created Office of Constitutional Integrity. This is a reclamation of sovereignty over federal power, guys, right? After what? Decades of infiltration. So the bottom line is this. The enforcement apparatus that was once used to neutralize sovereign leadership is being dismantled quietly, okay, without any media spectacle. The agents removed from the FBI this morning is just the beginning, okay? They were removed with precision. Again, Space Force is now using advanced technologies to drain the swamp. And this is the same technology which will allow them to continue purging the criminal networks and the mafias in the entire American continent. So the FBI replacements were double vetted through a hardened national security clearance pipelines. And so at this point, the purge is real, guys. Okay. The network is collapsing, the deep state, and the federal enforcement system is being rebuilt from the inside out. So this is great news, guys. Okay. This is great news. I am so excited that they are finally purging the three-letter agencies. And along the way, Space Force is not only being used to dismantle the rest of the Mexican mafia, because the Mexican mafia is next. There's no way that the president, Claudia, whatever her name is, from Mexico, is going to prevent Trump from actually breaking down the mafia, which runs the Mexican government, which means that she's probably going to lose her job as well. But in this case, if Claudia, which is the president of Mexico, if she cooperates, meaning if she allows the U.S. Space Force and Navy SEALs to actually take out the cartel and remove what is probably 90% of the Mexican government and the rest of Latin America, then it doesn't have to, she doesn't have to get arrested. Okay. So she's actually was given 30 days to comply. So we might even see this operation sooner than later, which is a good thing, right? We need to take out the Mexican cartel because the Mexican cartel, guys, um, is probably what's affecting us the most due to how close they are to the border. And all of this is happening parallel to what? The replacement of the UN by the new Board of Peace. I mean, this is a multi parallel layered operation, guys. Okay. Unfortunately, it is happening from behind the scenes. And the only reason being, right, this is the only reason why POTUS hasn't invoked the Insurrection Act is because they want to prevent catastrophe and chaos brewing across the nation and worldwide too, because I hear that Europe has a lot of immigrants or a lot of sleeping cells, a lot of, you know, criminals that are also flooding the European countries. Well, um, we have to do something about that too. And this is why I believe that the Board of Peace is going to be very instrumental in across Europe as well. Otherwise, unfortunately, we would see chaos brewing all over Europe in the next 6 months. So the alliance is using strategy to prevent casualties, to prevent chaos, and most importantly, to prevent anarchy from happening worldwide. So I am excited. I don't know about you guys, but I am excited. And again, once again, Folium, there's only 18 PX left. I think PX, which is the most potent Folium, was out for about a month and a half now, but it's back in stock. So if you guys want to get your Folium, make sure you guys go through that link ASAP before other people buy it, because that stuff is on high demand at this time. I do want to take some super chats, but before I do, I want to give some shout outs to Trinity, to CNN, Robin Davis, Jill Hunt is in the house, Peggy Baker, Sylvia Vidal, Diana77 Unicorn. I want to give shout outs to new people that I've never mentioned before. Let's see, who else is here? Who else is new? I keep seeing the same people that I give shout outs 3 times a week. Let me see if I could find somebody that I've never shouted out before. Let's see. It's the same people. Okay. Well, I do want to give everyone a shout out, all 3,000 people that are in the house. Thank you guys so much for being here. Oh, you guys are so welcome. I see all the love here. Collab with Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. It's interesting. It's very interesting that you mentioned Julian Assange. I don't know what happened to Edward Snowden. I think he's still being protected in Russia. But Julian Assange, guys, I don't know. I was told by someone who follows my podcast that apparently Julian Assange is letting people know to follow my intel and to listen to me, which is a good thing. So that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. All right, so I do want to take some super chats now. This is a super chat from Jacob Scherer. Thank you so much for the super chat. Ishmael, will we gain our full memory of all 15 dimensions and avatars upon the first solar flash? And how does that work with the multidimensionality and the many worlds idea? Thought there is a different world for each decision. That's a multi-tier question, multi-layered question. Beginning with the first question here. It all depends on where you volunteer from. If you are one of those few cosmic reishi avatars that volunteered all the way from the 13, 14, or even 15 dimension, then yes, you will regain all of that memory back. But if you volunteer from the 7th dimension, you're only going to have memory to the 7th dimension. If you volunteer from the 6th dimension, you're only going to have memory up to the 6th dimension. And then you're going to keep ascending. Okay, so it all depends on from where you volunteered from. So there are, at the core of the 144,000, we do have about 12 or even 13, I think it's 12, cosmic avatars, which in other words, they are collective gestalts of consciousness that have incarnated from the central universe, from eternity, from either the 13, 14, or 15 dimension. There's only 12 people on the planet that came from those levels of reality. So it all depends. All right, next question. Joyful, thank you so much for your super chat. Have any first waivers ascended yet? Not yet. Not that I know of, at least. Or does it have to happen as a collective of them? It does happen in groupings because we are all interconnected, right? The 12 will activate the 100. The 100 will in turn activate and ignite the 144,000. And the 144,000 will ignite the millions, if that makes any sense. Second question. Does Ascension of the first waivers have to wait for the EBS? Not necessarily, right? Ascension has to do with the influx of CMEs and solar flares that are light encoded packages of information that are actually turning on the dormant DNA. So that's how ascension happens. Good question, though. Thank you so much, Susan K, for your donation. Well received. And also Edward Wuzik. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that. Ascension is holding the truth and managing to handle multiple dimensions at once. Well, that's another way of describing ascension. I call it multidimensional integration, becoming more of your oversoul. Remember, guys, your oversoul is all of your yous existing in all these dimensions, in all of these timelines, all at the same time, right? Different fractals of the oversoul. Ascension is the reintegration process of all of your yous back into the whole you, which is what you are at the oversoul level. And that's where we're heading. So, it doesn't just end in the fifth dimension, it actually continues beyond the fifth dimension. You guys are so welcome. I see a lot of thank you for all that I do. I love what I do, guys. I love and I take pride. I work all day to gather data and intel for you guys. So it's a great honor and pleasure to be part of this great awakening. Oh, and you know what else I heard? That there was geoengineering that was causing the fake snow. So a lot of reports came in that over the weekend during the blizzards in the East Coast and part of Central America was all geoengineering. All right. People were reporting that the snow was actually fake. So again, this is done by negative AI because the original deep staters were taken to Gitmo years ago. So what we're seeing now is just a bunch of NPCs, right? Inorganic replacements. So this is being done by AI, by negative AI. Once negative AI is completely neutralized, and I believe that the solar flash is going to be the catalyst or the source of that takedown, then we're definitely going to, be in a much better society. But I have a feeling that it's all going to happen simultaneously. I have a feeling that the first wave or the first flash is what's going to initiate the new global currency, Nasera Gesera, the activation of the quantum freedom grid, the QFS, and of course, all of the good things that are coming as a result of that. So, yeah, this is exciting. Exciting times to be alive, my friends. Yes, Canada is on the list. It's going to be the 52 state, Greenland, the 51st state. I will be also giving you guys the code for Folium to get the discount at the end of the live. I will put it in the comments. I will pin it in the comments as well as putting it in the description. Thank you so much, Stuart Williams, for the super chat. That is very generous of you, brother. What do you think about what's happening in Minneapolis right now? Well, I talked about it earlier. So, for those that are just coming in, make sure you guys watch this presentation from the beginning. I break down not only what's happening there, but I break down what's happening on a greater scale. Finally the draining of the swamp, beginning with the three-letter agencies, and then of course what's happening in Europe right now with the Board of Peace replacing the UN and much more. So make sure you guys watch this from the beginning. Ishmael, you were mentioned on Judy Bidington's Intel report this morning. Oh, wow. That's awesome. I didn't realize that. I listen to her report every morning. Okay, Judy Byington. I guess she's another outlet for White Hat Alliance reports. I heard about that. My lovey listens to her, and yeah, she did confirm that she did mention me this morning. Uh, it's fascinating. It's an honor to be part of this great awakening, and I also wanted to thank Julian Assange for also letting people know to trust my intel and for mentioning me as well. So big shout out to Julian Assange. I appreciate what you've done with WikiLeaks since 2016. Big shout out to Judy Bidington and all of those truthers out there that are actually risking their life to tell us the truth and bring us um, the accuracy of what's really happening. So big shout out to all of these truthers out there. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to thank Michael Jaco, Patriots Street Fighter Scott McKay, Simon Parks. Big shout out to everyone. All right, questions, questions. And by the way, guys, I do read the comments. There are a few people that would like me to just focus on ascension topics, metaphysics, spirituality, galactic stuff. But let me just remind you guys that everything that's happening right now with the war, this final battle chess game between the Alliance and the Cabal, this all ties into the galactic stuff. This all ties into spiritual knowledge, ascension. It's all interwoven. Okay, it's all interwoven. What we are witnessing here, for all my new subscribers, is a final showdown or a final war that's been going on in our Milky Way and other galaxies for millions of years. All right. The Alliance are the descendants of the galactic humans and the different Federation councils who were fighting a war against the Orion Draco Empire. Okay, this was an intergalactic war at one point. So it's all interconnected. Okay, it's all interconnected. So, yes, every Monday, I will give geopolitical updates. As well as every Saturday and Wednesday, I will give interstellar galactic updates, perhaps talk about ascension or spiritual stuff. This platform covers every topic. Okay, I'm trying to do my best to connect everything and integrate it all so that people can understand the bigger picture. So it's all needed information. Okay, as above, so below. Remember that. All right, let's continue here. Yes, it's all connected. All right, I have a super chat from Sun Lakers. Welcome, Sun Lakers. Ishmael, does hearing ringing in the person's ears have a meaning? Yeah, it means that you are being contacted by galactics. My noise is like I hear a chainsaw far out in the woods. Oh, okay. I guess everyone's experiencing contact a little different. What I would do, my friend, is I would actually, when you hear the ringing in your ears or whatever you hear, try to meditate. Try to go internally to see what transmissions coming is coming through. Okay. That's my suggestion. I appreciate the super chat from Sylvia Vidal. So, what the three-letter agencies are left to take down? What are the three-letter agencies left to take down before disclosure? Can you please ask now to Valiant Thor what was those rotating orbs of light saw in the skies on the 7th of January, right? Just happened recently. I could definitely ask him what those orbs of light were. So, and to answer the first part of your question, Sylvia, as of today, all of the deep staters that were, again, the swamp that had been using the FBI for decades were all taken out. They were all arrested as of this morning, right? And I believe that that information is also validated and documented by this alternative news source known as the Guesset Teller. So it's not just me, letting you guys know that the FBI was purged this morning. Uh, it has been validated by other alternative alliance news sources. Okay, but as far as the Space Force Command, my guys, guys, this is the beginning. This is going to be the beginning of something new. Okay. What do you think of skull to brain technologies? Well, that is advanced tech to control people's minds, where they use frequencies and satellite based technologies to actually um, put, um, you could say, the best way to describe it is it put words in your head. It's like you're hearing somebody's voice. All right. So it's done, it's been executed by the cabal. And a lot of this has been done to the super soldiers. Okay. So, yeah, they've used technologies to control their mind. Okay. So we have to be careful. Um, yeah. Skull to voice technology is very real. Very real. All right. I have another super chat from Joyful. Thank you so much, sister. When we ascend, will we be able to dress the way we want and our hygiene habits? Will they be different? No, you're going to be dressing more spiritual. We're going to have togas, right? We're going to have, space suits. So we're going to be going beyond t-shirts. Okay. I'm not going to be wearing t-shirts and jeans anymore, guys. I'm going to be wearing a space suit, perhaps a white robe. Okay. So that's how advanced galactic humans dress. They don't wear t-shirts. They don't wear suits and ties, none of that stuff. And then the second part of your question is, will we still take showers? Well, that all depends on which dimension you integrate with. Okay. Hygiene habits. Well, if you go to the fifth dimension and above, you won't need the hygiene habits anymore. You won't need, to put face cream because you're going to regenerate to looking 30 again. Okay. So you're going to be youthful again naturally. Okay. So none of that will be applicable in 5D or above. And then showers, yeah, that all depends on if whether or not you want to take a shower. That's up to you, but I don't think you will need to anymore. Um, and will we be able to manifest, or do we just manifest our cleanliness? She says, laughing out loud. If you go to the 5D, yes, you're just going to think yourself clean and you're going to be clean. However, the younger souls that are going into the 4th D Earth, which is going to exist in a lower layer reality Earth, they will still have to take a shower, okay? Because they're not going to have superhuman abilities, right? Only the fifth dimensional people and above, if that makes any sense. I have another super chat from Jade. Jade Austin, thank you so much for being here. Do you believe that the first 12 to ascend know who they are? Yes, they do. And what dimension they are from? Anywhere from the 13 dimension and above. That's where they're from. God, you guys have really good questions tonight. You guys are really making me think tonight. What about the Epstein files? They're still scheduled to be exposed, all of them, including all the stuff that was redacted. Okay. So everything's coming out, guys. Everything's coming out. It's going to be like the apocalypse, a huge revelation. My brother David says that he's not sure if I realize that I am one of the 12. I think he's referring to that. Well, I guess if when we activate, we will everyone will know who everyone is by their level of power. The 12 who are going to be using 100% of their full capacity, having access to unlimited abilities, will be given the responsibility to ensure that all the other metahumans, right, different layers of metahumans, use their powers for good. And they're going to be very, very compassionate. That's all I know, whoever these 12 are. So let's continue here with the questions. He was referring to me being one of the 12. So when we activate, the 12 will be revealed. Yes, we are at the end of a 26,000 year cycle. Absolutely. I do want to welcome all my new subscribers. Welcome to the Galactic Jedi Tribe. What is happening in Spain? I do not know. Is the Alliance going to help the people? Greetings from Denmark. There is a plan, yes, to bring Europe back their sovereignty from the UN. That is part of the plan, absolutely. I want to give David a shout out. David C9. I recognize you, brother. I recognize your frequency. In fact, I recognize everybody's frequency here. Guys, we've done this together as a team in other prior cycles, okay, in other worlds and other realities. So we have all worked together before as the 144,000, as members of the Guardian Alliance. So when we activate, we are all going to know who we are. Thank you so much, Carol. Carol, I can't pronounce her last name, Schwakowski. I appreciate that, sister. Thank you so much for your super chat. Yes, brother, we have liberated many planets together and universes. And universes. Yes, we will also recognize our own frequency. Absolutely. Why? Because we're going to be, our memories are going to be returned. We're going to just have that direct knowledge once again, which is what they call what? Gnosis. Gnosis is returning. Gnosis is returning to all the starseeds when we activate. The 12 remind me of the Knights of the Round Table, Avalon. It's fascinating that you actually mentioned that because according to the Melchizedek cloister of the Emerald Order, the Guardian Alliance, all of their celestial administrations are organized within the councils of 12. We see the Council of 12 being represented on every level of reality, guys. Okay. So it is being reestablished here as the office of the Christ once again. Yes, once we finalize the purging and the draining of the swamp worldwide, including their criminal networks like the Mexican mafia, etc., then the digital ID will be no more. Okay, the digital ID was the cabal's uh, part of the agenda of bringing about their new world order, but it's not going to happen anymore. You guys are so welcome. We have time for about another 5 minutes of Q&A, guys. Excuse me. Sorry, I burped. I didn't mean to do that. Alrighty, let's continue here. All right. I love answering this question because some of my new subscribers have a Christian background, which I totally respect. I respect all religions, by the way, guys. Okay, so where does Jesus fit into all this cosmic history? Well, Sherry, if you take my class or cosmic origin, I reveal Jesus as the firstborn and the first overseer of the first creation. He is our eldest brother. So, in terms of the cosmic spiritual synarchy, right, the councils of light, he is at the head of all of that. As the firstborn in heaven, Jesus presides over the entire Melchizedek cloister of the Guardian Alliance. To answer your question, Sherry. I do want to thank PPeace124 for their super chat. Thank you so much. Such happy news is about the big cleanup in the three-letter agencies. Yes, I know. I can't believe that the FBI was finally purged today. We are blessed. Explanation of righteousness. Explanation of righteousness. Okay. Thank you. Ricky Lee 1111, thank you so much for your super chat. Ish, have you heard of the custodians? Yes, I have. And where do they come from? Well, the custodians is another way of describing the guardians, one and the same. Okay, so we have different level guardians, right? Different depending on the dimension, right? Or level of reality. But all guardians, guys, they all operate under the one God for all the multiverse. All right. All the advanced civilizations out there, which most are human, galactic humans, they were all made in the image of the one God, okay, including those that are not human. But the humans were like the main ones because, you know, it was the human image, you could say, was the original structure, okay? And so, with that in mind, you could say that all of the advanced civilizations, all of the aliens, whatever, they all answer to the one God, okay? They all answer to the one God. Even though there are different functionaries, right? Angels, seraphim, cherubim, different layers or levels of celestials, from the Pleiadians to the Andromedans, they're all operating under the direction of the one God. So the one God for all the cosmos, guys, which is God with the capital G, the one infinite creator. Our Okay, this is a super chat from Julie Ponte. Thank you so much, Julie. Our dimension, let's see if I could 4D or 5D already predetermined? No, it's not predetermined. Do we have a choice? Absolutely, you have a choice. You have a choice every day, every second. We are afforded the opportunity to determine in which dimension we ultimately end up in. Through what? Through our vibration. Through our vibration. Good question, Julie. So no, it's not predetermined. However, if you are a volunteer soul, an old soul that volunteered to come back in human form, then you're just going to be reintegrating back to where you came from. So you could have been from the eighth dimension, Julie, and therefore you're going to have access to all of the dimensions going all the way to the eight. Okay. If that makes any sense. All right. I think I am done for the evening. As a reminder, guys, don't forget that there are only 12 PX folium, which is the most potent one. I will put the link in the description as well as pin it in the comments, and then I will put the discount codes. All right. So you guys could save some money when you guys order your folium. High demand for the folium. It does wonders. Um, with that having been said, I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your evening. Don't forget to spend time going inward. All right. And be good to yourself. May the God force be with you all.